everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lisa and I talk about my life in Brisbane as well as my travels on this channel. I hope you enjoyed those clips that I showed of you of my stay at the Sunway Putra Hotel as well as our time at the Sunway Putra Mall, which is attached to the hotel. I was at this hotel for a couple of nights. It was the last couple of nights of my Malaysia trip. I was in Kuala Lumpur at this time to visit Parliament with my father, who is a senator. I was quite excited about this visit to Parliament because I've never been to a Parliament house before, and I know that this would be sort of my last opportunity because his term ends sometime later this year, and Parliament House in Malaysia is one of those places that you either go to work there or you're invited there, and he had to get permission for me to come to Parliament as his guest. So my father organized the booking for my room at the Sunway Putra Hotel. It initially smelled quite strong of cigarette smoke, and I sprayed a bit of one of my perfumes, and by the time I got back to the room, most of the cigarette smell was gone. I'm not sure if the staff had come in and done some air freshening as well. I find it quite interesting that this is the second hotel room that I've had this issue with during this Malaysia trip. It seems that the rooms are non-smoking, but there are guests who don't respect that, and I really feel they should be penalized on their way out. But maybe it's hard for the staff to enforce such penalties if they do exist. Sunway Putra Hotel was convenient because of how close it was to Parliament, and also because there was a mall attached. So when I had free time, I was able to pop and take a look at the shops, get something to drink, get something to eat. We purchased snacks there after dinner, and we had dinner there as well. And I think it's fine as a hotel if you have stuff to do in that area, but it probably isn't too close to many of what I would consider the Kuala Lumpur attractions, although probably a lot of the attractions in the capital city are somewhat spaced apart, so you do have to have some sort of commute. There is a light rail station called PWTC, which stands for Putra World Trade Center. If you were making this hotel your base for your trip in KL, you could potentially use public transport and get around quite easily, or in Kuala Lumpur it seemed quite common to use Grab, which is their version of Uber. My father had a suite on the same floor as I did, and his rate included breakfast for two, so I joined him for breakfast the 2 mornings that I was there. And then on one morning we went to Parliament together, and the other morning I said goodbye to him before he went to work, and then I got ready to go to the airport to take my flight to Changi, where I had a transit before returning to Brisbane. On the morning that I went to Parliament, I took a Grab back. The Grab driver dropped me off at the Sunway Putra Mall, and then the security staff, I think because they were in uniform, they slapped his car and sort of scolded him and me. I think they're trying to scold me as well as I got out of the car, because we weren't supposed to stop there, I think. And I do recall when the airport limo driver dropped me off, he actually made a big round to get me to the hotel drop-off side, which is just a few steps away from that part where we were not supposed to stop at. But I kind of thought this was a little bit rude because not everybody knows. Like for me, for example, I'm a visitor there. Not everybody knows that that's a no drop-off zone. Certainly the Grab driver didn't know, and he was a local. So that wasn't a really great experience. And at the time that I was there, the street entrance to the hotel was undergoing some sort of refurbishment, so it was a little messy to get into. But once I was in the hotel proper, it was really quite a grand lobby area, and you could sort of tell it was targeting a bit of the, I would say, businessy, higher end market. Breakfast was pretty good, lots and lots of options. They had organized the breakfast area by country, so you could have different breakfasts from different countries, and that was fun. But of course, how much breakfast can we have at one time? Dining at the Sunway Putra Mall, there were quite a few options, and of course I was only there for a couple of nights, so I didn't have the opportunity to get bored. My father, my brother, and I, we went to a couple different places for dinner, and during the day I had enough variety to amuse myself in terms of food and drink. And I really enjoyed the Mercato supermarket, which was in the Sunway Putra Mall, that had so many options of snacks and drinks and all sorts of sachet coffees which are not available in Australia. So I really enjoy trying out those things which I can't find in Australia. And they also sold alcohol, and I was super pleased to find I had a bottle of Moscato d'Asti, which is my favorite wine. So overall, it was a pleasant stay, I think, mostly because my father is a regular in that hotel, and of course he gets a bit of preferential treatment, and I would not have chosen that hotel if he wasn't staying there, because my preference is to stay at the Pavilion Mall end of the city when I do go to KL. So that's the end of my time in Malaysia for this trip, and overall it was nice to see my family and friends and to have some experiences, such as going to Parliament, which was something special for me. So upon checkout, I left the hotel quite early because I'm always nervous of jams in Kuala Lumpur. Like, the traffic jams can be really quite bad. And the airport limo driver had told me what time I needed to leave by the latest in order to make my flight to Singapore. And I then padded it with a couple more hours. So I actually left the hotel around noon. And so I got to the airport by 1, and the staff at the Singapore Airlines check-in desk were kind enough to offer me a seat on an earlier flight. So I left Kuala Lumpur a bit earlier than I was expecting. One more thing I'd like to mention about the hotel room is that I noticed that after I had shut the door, it would reopen, so it wasn't fully shutting. So that's something to be mindful of whenever you're staying in a hotel. Sometimes I think the closing mechanism might not be working properly, and it's just something that I had to be aware of as well, because I tend to travel solo. And yeah, I was a bit worried when I saw the door slightly swing open on its own again. So hopefully they do get around to fixing those things, because my father said that the suite that he usually stays in had been refurbished, and it did look a little nicer and brighter than the room I was staying in. So perhaps they were just doing it in stages, which hotel rooms they were refurbishing. Overall, staff at the hotel were really helpful and friendly, again possibly because most of the time I was with my dad if I was moving throughout the hotel. Because it was the end of my trip, I wasn't too bothered about doing more loads of laundry, but I did want to get my cardigan washed, and I used the hotel service, and that was pretty quick for them to get it back to me. Again, they would be used to having hotel guests who need perhaps their business wear ready pretty quickly. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing. Love to have you here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!